In Section 3, we looked at the three foundations of music: rhythm, melody, and harmony. The first foundation, rhythm, indicates how sounds are organized over time. It outlines the pulse or beat of the music. How strong or weak the beat is indicates how easy it is to identify by listening. Since music can often be dynamic and flowing, the pace of the music is also prone to ebb and flow. The speed of the beat is called its tempo. Since the 1600s, tempo has been indicated by composers in their scores, usually notated in the Italian terms lento, largo, adagio, andante, moderato, allegretto, allegro, vivace, presto, or prestissimo. Additionally, the Italian terms ritardando and accelerando are used to mark parts where a piece slows down or speeds up, whereas a tempo, or tempo primo, notates when to return to the original speed. More subtle fluctuations in tempo during particularly expressive sections are called rubato, literally translating to stolen time. Another important part of rhythm is meter, or how certain beats are either stressed or unstressed. Most of our music has stressed beats every 2 beats, called duple meter, or every 3 beats, called triple meter. If a piece's pulse seems uneasy, it may be in a complex meter, a combination of duple and triple meters. If instead a piece's pulse seems to jump in unexpected places, it may be syncopated, a method of varying what beats are stressed, common in jazz, funk, rock, rap, and other genres we hear today. Meter is notated by time signature, numbers that indicate number of beats per measure and the value of each note. Common signatures are 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and 6/8, while others like 5/4 or 7/4 aren't as common. The second fundamental of music we looked at was melody, the stringing together of notes. Melodies are often the most memorable parts of a piece. The main melody of a work is called its theme. While several factors of a melody affect its impact, it is the pitches of the notes that contain the melody's purest musical identity. The melody's contour greatly impacts its character, with disjunct melodies making large leaps upwards or downwards between successive notes, while conjunct melodies remain much more reserved, only moving in smaller, less erratic steps. Repeat melodies are even more reserved, remaining at the same pitch for several notes. Melodies that repeat a tone or pitch without moving are deemed static. In addition to contour and movement, the range of notes between the highest and lowest pitches also leaves an impact on a melody's unique character. We don't expect melodies to move randomly, however. They move according to tension and balance. The notes of a melody are all related to the key tone or tonic. When the melody moves away from the tonic, tension is created, and we as listeners expect the melody to return to the tonic to resolve said tension. With all the possible ways to build tension in a melody, the balance between sections of tension and resolution guide the melody in the path that it takes. Imitation is a powerful tool when setting up multiple melodies played by different parts. Several parts can imitate a melodic idea introduced by another part, leading to polyphony centered around a melodic idea as it develops. After a melody is done developing, a melodic transition may be used to set up a new melody to begin. The third fundamental of music in this section is harmony. As visualized on a staff, if melody is music spread horizontally over time, then harmony is music spread vertically in one instant. It is defined as the combination of multiple sounds at once. When 2 voices perform at the same time on the same note by letter name, it is called a unison. Harmony is formed when the 2 notes are at different pitches. On top of that would be 3 or more pitches sounding together, which is called a chord. When the notes of a chord are played in succession, the resulting phrase is called an arpeggio. Consonance is the idea that pitches played together sound good together. If not, there is dissonance instead, and this creates tension for the individual melodies to resolve. Whether a harmony sounds good or not is subjective and varies between cultures and musical traditions, but in relation to each other within a piece, consonance and dissonance add to the mood and the balance of tension. Texture is how the component melodies and harmonies relate to each other and can be described as homophonic, polyphonic, or monophonic. Monophony is the simplest texture. Regardless of the number of voices, there is only one melody being played, and there is no harmonic accompaniment. In contrast, polyphony consists of 2 or more independent yet balanced melodies played at the same time. Homophony is the most common texture in the modern West, containing one melody or melodic idea with harmonic accompaniment underneath. Each of these textures can sometimes be found next to each other, even in the same piece. Form is the organization of the piece. Possibly the easiest form to understand is strophic or verse form, which utilizes several verses broken up by a refrain each time. Similar to strophic form, rondo form features the repetition of a theme broken up by new musical ideas or episodes. Another common form is theme and variations, which presents a main theme at the beginning, followed by many variations on that musical idea. Binary form features two related musical ideas played in succession, though it is the difference or contrast between these parts that drives it. Finally, there's ternary form, which utilizes both repetition and contrast. Similar to binary form, two ideas are presented in succession, but the first musical idea returns to conclude the piece. In Section 4, we begin to explore the different historical periods of music. Records of music from before the medieval period are scarce, but it is clear that the music was still prevalent in most ancient cultures, especially Greece and Rome. In fact, it was the fall of Rome in the 5th century that led to divisions across the empire, which gave rise to the city-states that dominated the medieval period, lasting up until the 15th century. These independent states across Europe would develop their own academic and musical traditions, though they were still unified by a strong devotion to the growing Catholic Church. Under the Church, sacred music thrived and was preserved by the monasteries and abbeys that provided Europe with education. This was also where the first instances of musical notation were created. Sacred music of the medieval period was dominated by Gregorian chant, conjunct, unaccompanied vocal melodies. Sometimes these chants had simple harmonies called organum, but modern concepts of harmony and tonality had not been developed yet. The lyrics of these chants originated from sacred Latin scripture. These chants were modified and expanded by tropes, which added new music and lyrics to existing hymns. Certain hymns, called the ordinary, would be performed at every Mass, while specific hymns, called the proper, were only performed during certain parts of the year. Besides Pope Gregory I, composers like Leonin, Perotin, Hildegard von Bingen, and Guillaume de Machaut, as well as theorists like Anicius Boethius and Guido d'Arezzo, would expand and develop sacred music from simple chants to rhythmically strong and increasingly polyphonic pieces of worship music. In contrast to sacred chants, the secular music of the Middle Ages had a polyphonic texture, strong beats for dancing, and musical accompaniment for others to play along. Lutes, recorders, hurdy-gurdies, bells, horns, and many other instruments were very common in secular music. Common types of secular vocal music were courtly love songs like ballade, virelai, or rondeau, as well as the chant-like motets borrowed from sacred music. Many songs feature monody, a type of monophony. Secular music was performed by young traveling minstrels and jongleurs, though aristocratic poets and composers from different regions of Europe would eventually begin to perform as well, thus developing the vocal music traditions of their home countries. Instrumental music was saved exclusively for dancing. After the Middle Ages came the Renaissance, a period lasting up until the 17th century, characterized by great progress in engineering, politics, religion, and of course, the arts. Like that from the Middle Ages, Renaissance music focused on singable melodies, though it was more likely to contain polyphony or instrumental accompaniment from a lute in particular. The Renaissance also saw the birth of the modern instrumental wind and string ensembles. In sacred music, the hymns that comprised masses were still rooted in Gregorian chant. The melody to which scripture was sung is called the cantus firmus, which served as the musical basis for masses by composers like Obrecht. Though unpopular at first, polyphony became more prominent in the Mass, championed by Palestrina. Like sacred music, the secular music of the Renaissance emphasized its lyrics, increasingly so as ideas of humanism began to challenge aspects of sacred life. The dominant form of popular song was the madrigal, and madrigal composers sometimes also wrote for masses as well. This crossover between worship and popular music shows how they affected each other's development as music in either context became more complex in harmony and timbre. We will see how music continues to develop from the 7th century onwards in later modules.